When Google unveiled Wave at their I/O developer conference in May 2009, the audience witnessed what the company boldly proclaimed would be the future of online communication. The demonstration lasted an unprecedented 80 minutes, with Google executives practically vibrating with excitement as they showcased a platform that promised to reimagine email, instant messaging, wikis, and social media into one revolutionary experience. The crowd erupted in applause multiple times during the demo. Developers frantically scribbled notes, and tech journalists immediately began crafting headlines about Google's next world-changing innovation. But there was one small problem that would prove fatal. Nobody, including Google itself, could adequately explain what Wave actually was or why anyone would want to use it. The backstory of Google Wave reads like a cautionary tale about brilliant engineers solving problems that didn't exist. The project originated from the minds of Lars and Jens Rasmussen, the Danish brothers who had previously created Google Maps and were looking for their next revolutionary challenge. Their thinking was elegantly simple, yet fundamentally flawed. Email was invented in the 1970s when the internet was a vastly different place. So what would email look like if it were invented today? They envisioned a world where communication could be real-time, where messages could be edited collaboratively like documents, where conversations could branch and merge like living organisms, and where multimedia could be seamlessly integrated without the clunky attachment system. The brothers assembled a team of some of Google's brightest engineers and spent 3 years building what they believed would be the communication platform of the future. They created a system where every keystroke could be transmitted in real time, where participants could join conversations at any point and see the entire history, where bots could participate alongside humans, and where the traditional boundaries between email, chat, and document editing would dissolve entirely. Google Wave launched as the most technically sophisticated communication platform ever created, and that sophistication was precisely its downfall. At its core, Wave was built on a concept called operational transformation, a complex computer science principle that allowed multiple users to edit the same document simultaneously without conflicts. Every character typed, every edit made, every media file inserted was treated as an operation that could be transformed and merged with other operations in real time. This meant that unlike traditional email where you send a message and it remains static, Wave messages were living documents that could be edited, expanded, and collaboratively refined even after they were sent. Participants could rewind conversations to see how they evolved, insert replies at any point in the thread rather than just at the end, and watch each other type character by character in real time. The platform supported rich media embedding, allowing users to insert photos, videos, maps, and interactive gadgets directly into conversations. Developers could create extensions and robots that could participate in waves, automatically translating languages, managing polls, playing games, or integrating with external services. The entire system was designed to be federated, meaning that theoretically anyone could run their own Wave server and communicate with users on other servers, much like email servers communicate with each other today. The initial rollout of Google Wave perfectly exemplified how a company could generate maximum hype while ensuring minimum adoption. Google chose to launch Wave through an invitation-only preview system, giving out just 100,000 invitations initially, which created an artificial scarcity that drove demand through the roof. Single Google Wave invitations were selling on eBay for hundreds of dollars, with some reaching over $1,000 as tech enthusiasts desperately sought access to what they assumed must be the next revolutionary platform. Technology blogs covered every rumor and speculation about Wave features, users created waiting lists, and begged for invitations on social media, and the platform achieved a level of pre-launch buzz that most companies could only dream about. But this invitation system created a fundamental problem that Google had not anticipated. Wave was designed as a collaborative communication tool, but users were receiving invitations individually with nobody else in their network to collaborate with. When users finally gained access to the platform they had waited months to try, they found themselves alone in a sophisticated communication tool with nobody to communicate with. The few people who did receive invitations simultaneously discovered that learning Wave required a significant time investment, and most of their friends and colleagues were still waiting for their own invitations. The user experience problems with Google Wave went far beyond the invitation bottleneck and revealed fundamental misunderstandings about how people actually communicate. The real-time typing feature that Google demonstrated so proudly in their presentations quickly proved to be more annoying than revolutionary, as users found it distracting and invasive to watch someone else typing and making mistakes in real time. The ability to edit messages after sending them, while technically impressive, confused users who were accustomed to the permanence of traditional email and chat systems. The complex threading system that allowed replies to be inserted anywhere in a conversation created meandering, incomprehensible discussions that were difficult to follow chronologically. Users who were familiar with the linear nature of email threads found themselves lost in wave conversations that branched and merged in ways that felt chaotic rather than organized. The platform's notification system was overwhelming, alerting users to every edit, every reply, and every minor change in waves they were following, creating a constant stream of interruptions that made the tool feel more like a burden than a benefit. Many users reported that they would return to find hundreds of notifications for waves where the actual information content was minimal, buried under a mountain of incremental updates. The developer and business community initially embraced Google Wave with enthusiasm, but practical implementation revealed the platform's limitations. Early adopters included technology companies, software development teams, and digital agencies who were attracted to Wave's collaborative features and real-time editing capabilities. Some organizations attempted to use Wave for project management, creating waves for different initiatives where team members could collaborate on documents, share updates, and track progress in real time. Educational institutions experimented with Wave as a teaching tool, creating classroom discussions where students could collaborate on assignments and professors could observe the evolution of student thinking in real time. News organizations tested Wave for collaborative journalism, allowing reporters, editors, and sources to work together on stories in a shared space. However, these early implementations consistently ran into the same fundamental problem. Wave was trying to replace multiple established tools that people already understood and used effectively, but it didn't perform any single function better than the specialized tools it aimed to replace. Email clients were better at handling large volumes of correspondence, instant messaging apps were more efficient for quick conversations, document collaboration tools like Google Docs were more intuitive for editing, and project management platforms provided better structure for organizing work. The technical architecture that made Google Wave innovative also made it impractical for everyday use, creating performance and usability issues that frustrated even the most patient early adopters. Wave required constant internet connectivity and significant bandwidth to function properly, as every keystroke and edit was transmitted in real time to all participants. Users with slower internet connections experienced delays and synchronization issues that made the platform nearly unusable. The browser-based application was resource-intensive, causing older computers to slow down significantly when running Wave, and the platform was particularly problematic on mobile devices, which were becoming increasingly important for communication. The complex data model that allowed for operational transformation and real-time collaboration also meant that waves with extensive histories became slow to load and navigate, creating a performance penalty for the most active and collaborative conversations. Users reported that Wave felt sluggish compared to other communication tools, with noticeable delays when opening conversations, searching for content, or switching between different waves. The platform's ambitious feature set created a user interface that was cluttered and confusing, with multiple panels, toolbars, and options that overwhelmed new users who simply wanted to send messages and receive replies. Google's marketing and positioning of Wave demonstrated a fundamental disconnect between what the company thought they had created and what users actually needed. The company positioned Wave as the future of communication, but they never clearly articulated what specific problems it solved that couldn't be addressed by existing tools. Google's demonstrations focused heavily on technical capabilities and impressive features, but they provided few concrete use cases that resonated with ordinary users who were satisfied with their current communication methods. The company assumed that if they built a technically superior platform, users would naturally migrate from their existing tools, but they underestimated the switching costs and learning curve associated with adopting an entirely new communication paradigm. Google Wave required users not just to learn new software, but to fundamentally change how they thought about digital communication, collaboration, and information sharing. The platform demanded that entire groups of people adopt it simultaneously to be effective, but Google never provided compelling incentives for established teams and organizations to abandon their existing workflows. Marketing materials emphasized Wave's revolutionary nature rather than its practical benefits, creating expectations that the platform struggled to meet in real-world usage scenarios. The decline and eventual death of Google Wave happened with surprising speed for a platform that had generated such enormous initial excitement. By early 2010, less than a year after the initial announcement, usage statistics showed that while hundreds of thousands of people had gained access to Wave, active engagement was disappointingly low. Most users tried the platform briefly, created a few test waves, and then abandoned it in favor of more familiar communication tools. Google conducted user research that revealed people found Wave confusing, overwhelming, and unnecessary for their existing communication needs. The real-time collaborative features that Google had assumed would be revolutionary were perceived as gimmicky by users who preferred the asynchronous nature of traditional email. The company attempted to address user concerns by simplifying the interface, improving performance, and adding tutorial materials. But these incremental improvements couldn't overcome the fundamental problem that Wave was a solution in search of a problem. Technology blogs that had initially celebrated Wave began publishing articles about its disappointing adoption rates, user complaints, and uncertain future. Developers who had created extensions and robots for the platform reported low usage and began focusing their efforts on other projects. On August 4, 2010, just 15 months after Wave's triumphant debut, Google announced that they were discontinuing development of the platform, making it one of the most spectacular failures in the company's history. The announcement sent shockwaves through the technology community, as many had assumed that Google would continue iterating on Wave until it achieved mainstream adoption. Google's official explanation cited low user adoption as the primary reason for Wave's cancellation, acknowledging that the platform had failed to gain the widespread acceptance necessary to justify continued development. The company committed to keeping existing Wave instances running until the end of 2012, giving users time to export their data and migrate to alternative platforms. Google also announced that they would open source the Wave protocol and codebase, allowing other developers to continue the project if they chose. However, the open source transition generated little interest, as the fundamental usability and adoption challenges that had doomed Google Wave remained unsolved. The platform officially shut down on April 30, 2012, taking with it millions of waves, countless hours of collaborative work, and one of the most ambitious communication experiments in internet history. The legacy of Google Wave extends far beyond its brief existence, offering crucial lessons about innovation, user experience, and the challenges of replacing established technologies. Wave's failure demonstrated that technical sophistication and engineering brilliance are insufficient for product success if users cannot understand the value proposition or integrate the tool into their existing workflows. The platform's demise highlighted the importance of solving real user problems rather than creating impressive technical demonstrations, and showed that revolutionary changes in fundamental behaviors like communication require extraordinary justification and careful user education. Many of Wave's innovative features eventually appeared in other Google products, with real-time collaboration becoming standard in Google Docs, and elements of Wave's communication philosophy influencing the development of Google+, Slack, and other collaborative platforms. The Wave protocol's federated approach to communication inspired later efforts in decentralized social media and messaging, though none achieved mainstream adoption. Perhaps most importantly, Google Wave served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of assuming that users want revolutionary changes to tools that already work adequately for their needs. The platform was undeniably ahead of its time, but being ahead of your time is often indistinguishable from being wrong about what users actually want. In the end, Google Wave's greatest contribution may have been teaching the technology industry that the future of communication would evolve gradually through incremental improvements rather than revolutionary replacements, and that sometimes the most impressive technical achievements are also the most spectacular commercial failures.